Hi and welcome back to the Leitrim Daily YouTube channel, where today we're going to be joined by Dean Zambra of Longford Town. Of course, they're in action in their final game in the SSE Airtricity League First Division, and it is really a culmination of a fantastic season. Despite all of the obstacles thrown in by COVID, we have 7 of the 10 teams all vying to either win the league or get a playoff position for themselves in the final round of games tomorrow evening. Now, as you mentioned, we're going to be joined by Dean Zambra. Dean, you're very welcome to the programme.
Hey, Breifne, thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thanks for joining us. Dean, of course, captain of Longford Town. You're almost a veteran of the league at this stage. You've been around both with Bray and Longford, mainly your career, as well as other little dalliances here, there and yonder. But they're the two clubs most people would associate you with in the league. Tomorrow night, it's all about Longford. It's all about trying to secure that playoff spot with the trip to Wexford. They're struggling this season. I don't want to put a curse on you, but you'd be very unlucky to miss out on a playoff position at this point in time.
Yeah, I think, based on everything that's happened this season and the turmoil and the adversity that every club has faced, we just need to go and do our job tomorrow night. And I know that's probably cliche, and you talk to any players and they'll give you those cliche answers, but we have a job to do to secure our position, and we have to do that going down here tomorrow to Wexford. And they've capable players. You mentioned there that they're struggling a little bit, but they do have capable players, including Jack Doherty, who played for ourselves and is a very good player. So you can't take anyone lightly in the league. You need to go and do your business, and even potentially if we can secure the position we need, you don't want to be limping into a playoff either. You want a little bit of momentum. So we've prepared all week for Wexford and to try and go and win that game.
Now, of course, let's explain the structure for listeners, because here in Leitrim, we don't really follow the SSE Airtricity League that closely, and the first division probably not really at all. So let's explain the structure. There's 10 teams. The top team win the league, get promoted. And at the moment, that's between two sides, Drogheda and Bray. Drogheda with a single point advantage at this moment in time. They face a trip to Cabinteely, who have fallen off the face of the earth in the last couple of weeks, although they're still in that relegation or in the playoff promotion hunt themselves. Bray Wanderers, they face a trip to Athlone, struggling again this season, although they've come up with a couple of decent results. How do you see that going? As a former Bray player yourself, how do you see that going? Is there a little bit of kind of, you hope Bray get that promotion, or do you really care? Is it all about Longford Town?
Well, at the minute for me, it's all about Longford. If anyone was to win it, or if Bray were to win it, I wouldn't begrudge them that at all. And being a former club, it's nice to see them doing well and back on their feet a little bit after a couple of down seasons where they came down out of the Premier Division. But for us, again, it is about Longford, and can't really worry about what the other teams do. Drogheda played really well against Cabinteely recently, so you'd expect them to get over the line. But from a Bray Wanderers point of view, they have to go and do their business, win the game, and you never know what can happen. And we've all seen results going up and down all season long. Expect the team to win and they get beaten, or you expect a certain result and it doesn't happen. And even within games, you've seen teams, including ourselves against Galway, 2-0 up and cruise, and then ended up losing the game. And I just think it's been that type of season. So from our point of view, it doesn't matter who wins the league. It's up to us to do our job. But between those two clubs, they just got to do their own business and hope the results go their way on either side. Well, Bray hope that Drogheda drop points, and Drogheda themselves just have to win and be concerned with winning themselves if they want to be the team that wins the league.
As you said, it's very difficult to predict what happens in this division this season in particular. Bray would be expected to beat Athlone based on form, and I suppose the way the league has gone this year, which really puts the pressure on Drogheda to beat Cabinteely. Now, Cabinteely have been struggling in recent weeks. They've really, since the mid-season, they just seem to have lost all momentum. Where they were top of the league, they're now just about holding on to that final playoff position, with two teams breathing down their neck. Galway, that you mentioned already, and Cobh. Slightly surprise packages, particularly maybe in the mid-season. Galway changed their manager. John Caulfield's made a huge impact since coming in there. From the outside looking in, what's your view been on Galway's run up the table in recent weeks?
Yeah, they've obviously been brilliant under John Caulfield, and John has a good track record as manager in the League of Ireland. So I think he knows what to do to get players playing a certain way, and just to get a response from players. And they've been very, very good under John. So yeah, you can't write them off. I think a lot of teams would probably prefer Cabinteely to hold on to that spot, so they don't have to play Galway or Cobh. two form teams, and like you said with Cobh, since the mid-season turn, have been very good as well and very impressive picking up results. So again, all to play for. Don't want to sound like a broken record or repeating that. It's very hard to predict who will and who won't be there, and Cabinteely could pull out results, like you said, haven't been in great form, but they could easily pull out results. And with Pat Devlin, the experienced manager, and Eddie Gormley there, I wouldn't put it past them to kind of come up with a result and then go on a run in the playoffs. And Galway and Cobh could be left on the outside, even though they've both performed really well recently. But I think each individual team's just going to be saying, look, we have to do our part, and everybody's going to be looking to win their own game tomorrow, and then the chips fall where they may after that. It'll be difficult games for everybody across the board, including, I think, our game in Wexford, and everybody will have to go and earn whatever they earn. So whatever happens tomorrow will be earned by the teams that earn it.
Yeah, and it would take a very bizarre set of results for you not to qualify at this stage, given I suppose the points position and also the goal difference. But Bray or Drogheda, one of them will be in second place, depending on how the results go tomorrow evening. There's 3 other spots up for grabs. At the moment, UCD and yourselves, 29 points. Galway, Cabinteely on 28 in that 5th place position at the moment, and Galway and Cobh a little bit further back on 26 points. So if you were a betting man, although you're not allowed to bet on the League of Ireland because you're a player, but if you were a betting man and you were looking at the teams and the different permutations, of course, within that group of 7, UCD, they play Galway and Drogheda play Cabinteely, so they can't both get maximum points. How do you see this going? You mentioned that some people would like to see Cabinteely in there based on form as maybe less of an opposition when you get to the playoff stage, but realistically, will they hold on to that spot, or is that kind of a long shot at this point in time based on form?
I think it's more a momentum thing. I think when you look at playoffs and even, in other leagues, it's sometimes the team with momentum that get into the 6th place or the 5th place that end up being, the stronger team in the playoffs. They maybe have a little bit more belief or confidence coming into the playoff round of fixtures. So I don't think it's that people would want to face Cabinteely or they think Cabinteely be an easier run. They might just look at the form of the likes of Galway and Cobh and think they're in better form, so we'd like to avoid them. So yeah, like I said, and as you mentioned yourself, they're all good teams. They've all had ups and downs. It's very hard to predict. It's very hard to say, look, that team will win the next 3 or 4 games and get promoted, because I don't think anybody that will end up in the playoffs will have a really great run of form where they've ripped off 3 and 4 wins. It seems to be, a couple of wins back to back and then maybe a defeat or a draw that stunts their momentum. And I know we've been like that all season, where we've put together a couple of wins but haven't been able to back it up with a long kind of maybe 5 out of 6 wins or 6 out of 7 wins or something like that. So, and I suppose that's the definition of why all these teams are kind of vying for those mid-table to playoff places, is that we haven't all been able to kind of put consistent runs of form together and separate ourselves from the pack. So again, when it comes to the playoffs, whatever the 4 teams are, they'll be highly competitive, probably very, very equal, and there won't be a lot between the teams on the day. And obviously another thing is the fact that we don't have fans in the stadium, so you're probably losing home field advantage for any team that maybe qualifies in that 2nd or 3rd position, certainly for the first game, and then the second game with the 2 winning teams playing against each other. Again, the home side won't have the benefit of their home crowd, so it's just such a level playing field. It's very, very equal and very, very hard to kind of predict any outcomes at this point. It's just who does it on the night, really.
Well, now that we've spoken about everybody else, let's have a little bit of a chat about Longford, because obviously that's probably what you know best this season. It's been a strange kind of season, a really, really good start. Kind of fell away towards the middle of the season, but you've really come back to good form in the last couple of weeks. And apart from that blip against Galway, it's been pretty solid. What's the mood like in the camp, and how's yourself and Dara and the management team and the management team within the players themselves coping with the pressure that comes with expecting to qualify for the playoffs tomorrow evening?
Yeah, I think the mood's good. I think everybody's, focused on what they need to do. I think we're disappointed overall that we haven't put in a better challenge for the league title, and we're not involved in those 2 teams that are going for the league. Probably let ourselves down a little bit in a couple of games that were, bizarre, but ended up losing or dropping points in. But like I said, that's our own fault, and we are where we are. So now we've got another way to progress and another way to go forward, which is the playoffs. And again, it's up to us to secure the position first of all, and then to go into the playoffs if we do secure that position, and then go and do the business there as well. But again, going back to our conversation, we're talking about some very good teams, very equal teams, and we've got to do our business on the training pitch first of all, and then bringing it into games to make sure we get results that we need and give ourselves our best chance.
In terms of the season so far, you did bring in a lot of new players at the start of this year, and I suppose in some respects, given the way the first couple of games went, particularly the loss of Dean early on in the season, not you now to be confused, but broke his leg back earlier at the start of the year. He effectively only missed a handful of games because of the COVID lockdown. Hasn't really been a huge loss to you, and he's been informed since he came back. In terms of the addition of the two Manleys to the squad now, what's the expectation within the club? Because obviously there would have been an expectation from the outside looking in that the addition of the second Manley brother to the squad, has top scorer last season from Cabinteely, would have fired you that little bit higher up the grade. Will anything but promotion be deemed, I suppose, a disappointment for Longford, given the investment, given the work that's been put in behind the scenes in the club?
Yeah, well, I think overall, the chairman's obviously backed the squad here, and Dara's got, a good squad together. Dara and Johnny will tell you themselves their ambition is to gain promotion out of the league this year, and they assembled a squad to do that. It would be disappointing if we don't fulfill our ambition, but like I said, we've a long way to go to get that. We probably are a little bit disappointed that we haven't been a bit more consistent with some of the players you've mentioned, but like we also lost 3 or 4 very good players out of the team as well, so we probably covered a little bit who left, who came in, but we maybe not got the balance right away. And then obviously with the break in the season because of the COVID, probably didn't get into the rhythm of gelling all those new players together. And then when the season returned, a much shorter season, then probably didn't give us the opportunity to kind of gel the new players and the new ideas just as quickly as we might have liked. And I know a lot of other teams would have had the same issues. Just for us, we probably didn't get to the level we were at last year at the very start of the season after the lockdown. Probably again because we just didn't have enough time together to kind of gel those new players into what we were doing kind of from the back end of last season when Dara first came in. So overall, yeah, I think it would be disappointing if we don't fulfill our ambition, which was at the start of the season to gain promotion. But I think there's a lot of good young players there. Bases have a very good squad, and going forward, I think the club's in a good position. So hopefully we do it this year. We're all geared up and we're focused, and we're just waiting for tomorrow because that's the next game and that's the most important one.
Obviously, of course, some of the people you mentioned who left the club in the last 12 months. One was the manager from last season, Neil Finn, went to Cork. He's now been, I suppose, relieved of his duties down there in Cork. What's the mood on that situation, I suppose, in the dressing room, with the fact that the manner in which he left the club last year towards the end of the season, just as you were pushing for a playoff like you are now, and it hasn't worked out for him in Cork? Is there a disappointment on a personal level, or is there a little bit of kind of serves you right, or what's the view within the club on that?
Well, just from me personally, I wouldn't be begrudging of anyone. Neil obviously moved on to Cork City. He felt it was a big job. He said himself he felt it was a dream job for him because he had played from Cork, and I know his family from Cork as well. And Cork is a big club, Premier Division club. Look, it happens in football. Players move on, managers move on. Bigger clubs or clubs with bigger budget or bigger reputation come in for players or managers or coaches that are doing well at another level. Cork City obviously felt Neil could do a good job for them, and Neil obviously felt that was the right move for him at that point in his career. So I certainly don't begrudge him. I don't like seeing anyone losing their job in football because there's very few of them in Ireland, as you know. So from my point of view, I wished him well at the time, and I wish him well now, and whatever comes next, it doesn't really affect us in terms of what we're trying to do. I don't know about anyone else in the club, whether they'd have any animosity towards him over how things went on or how it went down, but certainly not from my point of view. And I know the squad of players here focused on what we're trying to do, and I'm very much behind Dara. And I think, Dara came in with slightly different ideas, some similar ideas to Neil, but I think people bought in at the back end of last season and then this year so far as well. So it's been a pretty smooth transition from us in terms of moving on from Neil into Dara.
I was planning on wrapping up with that final question, but you talked about the difference in ideas between Dara and Neil. What was the main ones in your opinion? What's been the difference between the two men's approach to the job?
I think Neil was insistent on playing a certain style and a certain way, and was brilliant, and it's certainly brilliant for the types of player he brought into the club. I think Dara's been a little bit more practical. He still wants us to play, he still wants us to be on the ball and dominating possession. But I think he's also kind of instilled the fact that we've brought in a player like Rob Manley, as you mentioned earlier, and Rob's very, very good, very direct, strong, quick, dynamic player. So Dara has also encouraged us to get the ball to Rob as much as we can and get the ball to our attacking players as quickly as we can at times too. So there might be just a slight difference in philosophy there, but probably the guidelines of how to play and how to do things are very similar, but maybe just an emphasis on, pushing the ball forward or more direct, slightly quicker if you can, to a player like Rob. We probably didn't have that player last year, so maybe didn't have that outlet. So just, I think Dara's maybe just incorporated Rob Manley and Rob's skill set into what we're doing. Maybe slightly different to what Neil wanted us to do in the entirety of last season. And again, as we've mentioned throughout the interview, there's been a change in the certain players. So maybe certain players do things certain things differently, and some players do it better. Some players do certain things in a certain way. So I think Dara has adjusted what we do to what the group of players are capable of doing, and the level they're capable of doing that. So, that's obviously a managerial thing, and Dara's had a look at it and has obviously, laid out how he wants the team to play. And again, not a massive difference to Neil, but just maybe a slight difference here and there, and a slight different message going into certain different types of games. And that's probably the only main difference between the two.
Yeah, well, as I said, thank you very much for your time. We've gone a little bit longer than I expected to, purely because just the interest in the conversation. But thank you very much for having a chat with us, and the very, very best of luck to you and your teammates tomorrow night. And hopefully we'll have some nights in Bishopsgate, as it's called now. It changes name every season. It's really weird. But Bishopsgate now, or City Calling Stadium, or Flanker, whatever people know it as, on the Strokes down the road out of Longford. Yeah. And the best of luck to you tomorrow night in Wexford, and hopefully you get that playoff position secured and nailed down and go on to. It's a fairly rigorous playoff. You play 3 rounds of games to get there, to secure a Premier Division status for next season. Finn Harp's waiting, probably Finn Harp's waiting at the end for whoever comes out of the 4 teams in the First Division. Dean Zambra, thanks very much for joining us, and the best of luck tomorrow night.
Thanks a lot, Breath.